In Academic Task 1, a map question appears in about 1 out of every 8 IELTS tests. And what that means is that there's a very good chance that you will not get one in your IELTS test. But you would be taking a very big risk by not preparing for this question type. Because if you do get this question in your IELTS test, you've immediately ruined your chances of a good IELTS writing score. In this lesson, I will outline the steps that you need to follow for map questions, and I will show you 3 sample answers that were written by following these steps. My name is Lara Ryan, and I'm the founder of Complete Test Success. I've been an IELTS examiner, I've been an IELTS teacher at the British Council, and I've been helping IELTS students for over a decade. Step 1 is to analyse the question, and doing this is a lot like those spot the difference puzzles that we used to play as kids. So like this, there are 2 pictures with some similarities and some differences, and we need to look for things like this, where the school in this picture and the school in this picture are the same, and where the shop in this picture is a supermarket in this picture. As we find each of the similarities and differences, we make a list under these 4 categories: same, gone and replaced by, changed, and new. Under the same category, we obviously write things that are the same in both pictures, such as the school in the pictures that we just looked at. For gone and replaced by, this would be like the shop and the supermarket that we just looked at. I like to put the supermarket in brackets just to help me follow which things replaced which, and it's a lot faster than writing out the full sentence, the supermarket replaced the shop. Under the change category, we have things that were in both pictures but are different in some way. So it might be bigger or smaller, or it might have moved position on the map. And then under new, we just write down anything extra that's in the second picture. And later on, as you're writing your essay, you'll be able to cross these off, and that will mean that you're 100% sure you've included everything. Step 2 is to write the first paragraph, and in this paragraph we will have the paraphrase of the question and the overview. So to paraphrase the question, you simply take the text at the top and you rewrite it in your own words. Use as many of your own words as possible, but don't stress about it if you need to copy some of the words from the original question. My other piece of advice is that you don't paraphrase one word at a time. Rather than that, you're going to break the sentence into bigger chunks and paraphrase each of those instead. Let me show you an example. So this type of text is typically what you will find above the pictures. So this would be the first chunk that I will take. And of course, we don't need to paraphrase the word below. For this, I would write, the images illustrate. And then we can focus on the second chunk, the layout of a family home now. And we can paraphrase this by saying, the floor plan for a family home at the moment. And then we do the same thing for the last chunk and how it will look after renovation. And I'll paraphrase this as, and the way it will appear after it has been renovated. This part here at the bottom of the question doesn't need to be paraphrased. In fact, this text is the exact same in every single Task 1 question, so we don't even need to read it. And after our paraphrase, we write the overview, which is a general description of the map. Now, in our overview, it's very important that we don't include specific information because that would bring down our task achievement score. So things like the shop was replaced by a supermarket, that information does not belong in the overview. Instead, you write one or both of the following: a general description of the map or a general description of the changes. For the general description of the map, you can describe any defining features. So you might describe a road that goes through the map, or maybe a river that cuts through the map. You might describe if it's on the coast, or some type of a feature like that. Just make sure that the description applies to both of the maps and not just one. And then to write a general description of the changes, we can say things like, the town is more built up, or the area has more residential buildings, or there are fewer natural features in the map. That type of a thing is perfect when you're describing the changes because you haven't said the specific things that actually happened. Step number 3 is to write the details paragraphs, and these will be the second and the third paragraphs of your answer. And this is where we put that specific information, such as the shop was replaced by the supermarket. Now, we don't want to describe these features in some kind of a random order. We want to do it logically. So we'll start at one point in the map and make our way through the map, describing the various features as we go along. And ideally, both of the details paragraphs will describe roughly the same number of features. And the final step is to proofread your answer, and this is after you've written your essay. You'll go through it, find your most common mistakes and fix them. This is also a good opportunity to improve the range of vocabulary in your answer, because you might find a word that you've used quite a lot and you can replace that with synonyms of that word. Now in the IELTS test you are most likely to get a graph question, but you might get a map or you might get a process. So make sure to like my channel or click subscribe so that you get my next lesson that covers exactly how to answer process questions. And here's the first question that we will look at. And our first step is to analyse this. These are the categories I showed you earlier on, and we're just going to fill out this list. Firstly, I'm going to focus on this area here. We can see that most of the rooms are gone, and in their place we have the stage, seating and ticket desk. So I'll add that to my list. As you can see, the things that disappeared are outside the brackets and the things that appeared are inside the brackets. That's just my shorthand, so I don't need to write too much in my notes. Next, I want to make a note of the room in the bottom left corner that's still there. I'll put this in the change category and say, the southwestern room is a restroom and snack bar. So that's everything in this area noted, and next we can focus on this part, which is the same in both images, and I'll add that to my list. And that leaves us with this last section up here. All of the items here are new, so we can include these in the last category. And that is step number 1 completed. So for step number 2, we need to write the paraphrase and the overview. Now, in the question, they use the term manor house, and I know that this would cause problems for a lot of IELTS candidates. A lot of IELTS candidates desperately avoid using words from the question, so they would probably paraphrase manor house as manor building or something like that. But that would be the wrong thing to do, because there is no way to paraphrase the term manor house, and the only thing we can do is copy this into our answer and move on. So let's have a look at the first paragraph. Here's the paraphrase. The images display the floor plan of a manor house that a theatre company bought and the layout of the building after it has been developed. And next is the overview. This first part is the general description of the maps. Overall, it is a rectangular shaped building with just one floor. And here is the general description of the changes. And once the development is complete, the majority of the internal walls will have been removed and there will be an extension onto the north and northeast sides. So that is step 1 and step 2 completed, and we move on to step 3 where we write the details paragraphs. To organise my details paragraphs, I decided to describe what was inside the original building in the first details paragraph and then everything else in the second details paragraph. So here's the first one. There are currently 11 rooms, but only the one in the southwest corner will remain after development, though it will be divided into a restroom and snack bar. You'll remember earlier I said we can cross off the items on our list as we write about them, just to make sure that we've actually covered everything. So on my list, I will just cross off these two, and I will continue to do so until they're all crossed off. And continuing the first details paragraph, I'll say, the rest of the rooms will become one open area with a stage on the north and 5 rows of seating to the south of the stage. The existing entrance on the south end of the building will remain in place with a ticket desk placed just inside. And onto the final paragraph, an extension will be built to the north so that a door will open from the stage onto a dressing room, and to the east of this a green room will be found. The extension will also include an area on the northeast side of the building where the wardrobe will be located, and there will be a stage door on its southern end. And here is the full essay that we just looked at, and you'll notice that I left a line between each paragraph so that it's very easy for the examiner to see where each one starts and ends. Next, I just want to point out some of the grammar tenses in this essay. So the question is based on now and the future. To describe the building as it is now, we used present simple, as you can see here. To describe what it looked like after the completion of the development, we used simple future. And then, because our focus is on the building, not the construction workers who made the changes, we need to use passive voice. In fact, passive voice is very important for this question type because you need to use it very regularly. So now you know how to write an answer to a map question, but there is a difference between knowing what to do and being able to do it. So that I can help you even further with this, I would fully recommend that you join my free live feedback lessons, and you will find the link for those in the video description. We have 2 more sample answers to look at, so let's move on to the next one. So just like before, our first step is to analyse the question. When I first looked at this question, I was a bit concerned that I might overlook some of the features. To avoid this, I approached it very systematically. So first of all, I looked down along the top and made notes of all the features there. Then I looked along the other side of the road and added those features. And finally, I made my way down the side here. And by adding all of the features in this way, I was very confident that I hadn't missed out on anything. There were no features under the changed category, so I just added NA for not applicable. So now we're going to write the paraphrase and the overview, and in the paraphrase I repeated the word map from the question because I'm not happy with any of the potential synonyms and I don't want to take any risks. And then in the overview I used the term infrastructure to refer to the new police station and the new road, and I used the term more built up because there are more buildings in the 2010 map than there were in the previous one. So let's have a look. The maps display a seaside town named Tendiff, based on its appearance in 1990 and how it was in 2010. And the overview. Overall, it has 4 beaches on its coastline along the Atlantic Ocean, and by 2010, the town was more built up and had additional infrastructure. Now it's time to write the details paragraphs, and I decided to follow the same path that we used when we analysed the question. So in the first details paragraph, I said, Spraymount Road runs from the top left corner of the map to about halfway down on the right, ending at White Beach. On the north side of the road, ABC Hotel and the cafe were still standing in 2010, but a seafood restaurant had replaced the shop. On the south side, Seaview Hotel was demolished to make way for a new road named Sandhill Road, which runs southwards. Continuing towards White Beach, it is seen that the arcade has been replaced by a supermarket, but the fast food restaurant was still there in 2010. And the final paragraph, at the intersection of Sandhill Road and Spraymount Road, a police station was constructed. Travelling south along Sandhill Road, King Hotel was built opposite Brown Beach, and Family Hotel was erected across from Grey Beach. Finally, it can be seen that there was a solar farm set up opposite Diamond Beach on the south end of Sandhill Road. And here's the full essay that we just looked at. I'd prefer if the details paragraphs were more similar in length, but I've prioritised logical organisation, so I'm still happy that this is the best way to organise these. So in the question that we just looked at, there was one map from the past and one from further in the past. So let's see how this affected the tenses that we needed to use in the answer. Once again, we needed to use a lot of passive structures, and like I said earlier, it's really important that you can use these effectively for this question type. Present simple was used to describe the layout, such as the roads and the geographical features. Past simple is used to describe a feature in 1990 or a feature in 2010. You can also see past perfect being used to describe a change that occurred between 1990 and 2010. Also, the word cafe should have a little line over the letter E, but if you're doing the computer-based test, you shouldn't worry about that, and just using the normal letter E would be fine. However, if you're doing the paper-based test, it's best to include that line over the E. If you've learned something valuable from this lesson so far, make sure to let me know by clicking like on the video. And with that, it's time to look at the third sample answer. Just like before, in step 1, we analysed the question by writing a list with our 4 categories. And here is the completed list for this question. Here is the paraphrase. The maps display the centre of a small village in Ireland named Dingle, as it appeared in 1985 and its current appearance. And the overview. Overall, Green Street runs from west to east through the village, with retail buildings along its northern and southern sides. Since 1985, some of the buildings have been repurposed and there has been some development. What I struggled with a bit in this question was whether I should start my details paragraphs with the woodland here or the row of buildings here. At first, I thought starting with the woodlands would make more sense because it's at the top of the map. However, once I started thinking about how I would describe it, I realised that I would need to explain where the woodlands are in relation to the buildings that I had already described in the overview. For that reason, I thought it would be less complicated to start with the buildings. And this is a good example of why it's very important to think through what you're going to say before you actually start writing a sentence. So, moving on to the details paragraphs. In 1985, on the west side of the village, north of Green Street, there was a hardware shop, a florist and a chemist, but these have all been replaced by a supermarket, whereas the butcher's shop and bakery are still in place. Originally, there was woodland to the north of this area, but it has been redeveloped with the supermarket extending into the west side and its car park on the east side behind the butcher shop and bakery. In addition, the pavement by the supermarket is now wider. And the final paragraph, the pavement remains unchanged on the south of Green Street, but on the west end a fast food restaurant trades where a chip shop and grocery shop used to stand. Moving eastward, the cafe has become a clothes shop, and next to that, the doctor's office is still there. Finally, at the end of the street, there is a phone shop in the building that used to be a newsagent. In relation to grammar, we can see that present simple is used to describe how things are now, present perfect is used to describe any changes that occurred, and once more, passive structures are needed throughout. Now, a very important aspect of writing answers like these is that you help the reader to visualize the map that they are reading about. So, I find the easiest way to do this is to imagine that the reader will not have the map and that your writing needs to be so descriptive that the reader can really visualize where they are on the map and where everything is. Let me show you the vocabulary I used in this particular answer. All these words highlighted here are what I'm referring to. In total, there are 68 words used in this essay to make sure that the reader doesn't get lost. So that should indicate to you how important it is to do this in your answer. So as you've just seen, when you get a map question, it's quite different from the normal graphs that you get in Academic Task 1. Let me know in the comments if you would prefer to get a map question or a graph question in your IELTS writing test.